Here's a luxury sports car. It's a 2020 Lexus 500H, the hybrid version. And yes, it is a luxury sports car. And yes, it does look like a rocket ship preparing to take off. It's got lines, it's got fancy wheels, it's got insane little swooshy tail lights, dual exhaust, giant chrome parts. It looks like a rocket ship, but this one is rocket science. It has rocket science technology in it, especially the transmission. Or I should say transmissions. Now, as everybody's going away from V8s to V6s, the original ones of these had V8 engines. And this one, as we look under the hood, it doesn't. It's got a V6 engine. Take that off. There's the V6 engine. You can see it has a lot of stuff on it. But the most interesting thing is down inside the transmission, or I should say transmissions. It has a 4-speed automatic transmission that's also connected to a CVT transmission, because they didn't want that rubber band feeling of CVT. So it combines both a 4-speed automatic with a CVT. And as you can see by these orange lines, high electricity. It also has 2 electric motors to make it go down the road. Now, the electric motor and a gasoline V6 motor combined for 354 horsepower. Now, still, that's less than the V8 version that puts out 471 horsepower. But as I said, this is a luxury sports car. This is not a race car. This baby wasn't made just for speed. As I showed you with the electric wires, it's also a hybrid vehicle. But it's not a conventional hybrid vehicle. The conventional hybrid vehicles, they get better gas mileage in town than they do on the highway because they regenerate electricity. But this is not the case in this. This is rated at 27 in the city and 35 on the highway. But I do have to say, from my own experience of driving on the highway, that highway figure is kind of inflated. It's a heavy vehicle. I drove it on the highway, and I got like 26.5 miles a gallon on the highway. They're kind of inflating that. And I drove very conservatively. I went the speed limit was 65. I went 65, 70. Went 55. I went 55, 60. So I wasn't racing it around. But in town, I did get 27 miles a gallon. It's rated quite a bit higher on the highway than in the city, because the hybrid here is mainly for acceleration and speed. It's not for gas mileage. Now, being a fancy hybrid, it does have a button for electric power. You push that, it goes for electric power. But don't expect to go very far on electric power. I put it on electric power and had the AC on full blast because it's hot here in Houston. It was 97 yesterday. So I had the AC on full blast. I put it on electric power just to see how far it go. And it went about 500-600 feet, then to turn the motor back on. This is by no means a plug-in hybrid. The electric battery in it isn't all that big. It's for boosting. It's not for getting phenomenal gas mileage. It's to give it more power with the technology that it has using a V6 engine. And as I said, this is a luxury sports car. It's not a race car. I gotta say, something very strange happened to me to show me what kind of a luxury sports car it really is. And that's my wife. Hates riding in sports cars. Whenever I get them, she looks at them and says, "It's beautiful, but I hate riding in those." We took a trip to the beach a few weeks ago in a new Toyota Supra. That, of course, is really a BMW. Her back got sore on the trip. It's an hour drive on the highway. She said, "Don't ever put me in another one of these sports cars and take me to the beach. They're too uncomfortable." But since she drives this Lexus all the time, I thought maybe I can tempt her with this Lexus sports car. So she saw it, loved the way it looked, sat in it, said, "Well, this seems a lot more comfortable to begin with, but it better ride well going to the beach." Now, being a mechanic for the last 52 years, I get to drive every car that's out there. So my wife has been in any kind of sports car you can imagine, and she hated them all after she rode in them for a while. Not this thing. She was comfy as can be. She didn't get a sore back like she did in a Supra from bouncing around. She said that is the only sports car that I would ever own. But this particular sports car, I do have to say, don't get mad at me people, but it's just my experience. Every single customer that I've had that's ever bought one of these things was a woman who had a lot of money, or her husband had a lot of money. Every single one of them. You see, my wife's only 5'1". And she fit quite well in the car. The seat contoured her. She felt really comfy. These cars are especially for people of smaller stature, because you see, Here we go. I'm going to move the seat up here. Look back here. This is the driver's seat. I moved it back as far as it could go. It's hitting against the back seat. Really, it should have been called a two-seater, because when you look in the back seat, there isn't much room. You could put a baby seat and put it backwards, sure. But for actual people, unless they had razor-thin legs, and they're not going to be sitting behind me in this thing. These are very limited production cars. From what I've researched in the United States here, the most they ever sold was about 1,900 of them in 1 year. They've got a very limited market, but man, they have honed down to their market. Like I said, every one of my customers who bought one of these things was a woman. This thing has a top speed of 168 miles an hour, and even that is electronically limited. It could go faster if you wanted to, so it's no slouch car. But of course, men, they want the absolute fastest thing they can get if they're spending 100 grand. So they're probably going to opt out for the V8 engine as long as they still produce them. Now for your purists, this is a classic sports car. Luxury though it may be, it's still rear-wheel drive. Has the rear-wheel drive characteristics that a lot of people are looking for. But being a Lexus, it rides like a dream. For a short base sports car, I've never been in one that rode smoother than this. That's why my wife liked it. Me, I was totally happy with the new Camry TRD and the Supra handling, because they're more sports racing design for speeding and cornering. This thing corners like a dream too. But it's not a car you take to the racetrack. It's not that kind of car. It's a luxury sports car. Check the inside out. Got the cool old handles. You got to push them to pop them out so they're flush. We get inside. Unbelievable leather combinations and colors. Cool hand holders here. I guess if the rider's scared, they can hold on real tight like they're on a roller coaster or something. And it does have one very interesting thing. Look at the steering wheel. It is not round. It's elliptical. That it's a much better driving experience. Doesn't touch my finger. Touches my finger. It's an elliptical steering wheel. It's not perfectly round. Really good design, but speaking of bad designs, I do have to say, the entertainment system has to be one of the worst designs I have ever seen in a modern car. I would like a touch screen. I kept trying to touch it, but that's not a touch screen here. That's just a regular car dash that's hidden inside. The touch screen is actually down here, where you have to use it like a mouse. And let me tell you, it is rather funky, to say the least. To compare it to the Corolla Hybrid that I drove a month ago. When I got in the Toyota Hybrid, it took me 30 seconds to sync my Samsung S10, and it started playing music on Spotify. 30 seconds. Now I'm a mechanic, but it took me almost 15 minutes to figure out how to sync this thing. It's got too many buttons. It's got tune here, seat track here, media, radio, menu, back, and then it's touch, but it also, you can push it like a mouse. Sometimes people take technology too far. In this case, it was. Beautifully designed car. I mean, the stereo works fantastic. And once I hook my phone up, any other time I get in the car, it just starts playing automatically. That's no problem. The fact that it took me, a mechanic, 15 minutes to figure out how to operate this thing, to get it to sync with my phone, you need to do something with that. See, they're going for a style that this is a normal type dash with that hidden inside, and that the mouse here is for activating it. But nah, I say nix on that design. I mean, you want a cup holder? There it is. You don't want to use it? Hey, it's not ugly. Even the armrest. Hey, you don't want it? Fine. You do? There it is. And when you don't, you put it back in. It was a really well-designed car, except for that stupid stereo system. But now let's just take it for a drive. Now, as with any Lexus, it's very smooth. And with this crazy 4-speed automatic combined to a CVT and electric drive, it just shifts smooth. Sometimes it actually shifts. Sometimes it's on the CVT. All run by computers. And the computers seem to work quite well. We'll see what happens when we try to take off. Now you can see, turn the engine off, it's on electric mode, and we're going to launch it. You can see it gets up and goes. It is not a slouch. No hands on the wheel, go straight. These are well-designed cars. There's no arguing that. They stop like a dream. They corner like a dream. And like I said, for something with a short wheelbase like this, they really ride smooth. I mean, they're not going to ride like my wife's Lexus because that's a full-size luxury car. But still, they ride extremely smoothly. It's not even like driving. It's kind of like a magic carpet ride. You don't have to do hardly anything. Now, when you do consider that the future probably V8 engines are going to go extinct. So this is the luxury sports car of both the present and the future will probably phase out V8 engines. Lexus is talking about phasing V8 engines. You never know what's actually going to happen in the future, but you can see it's got plenty of power. People will whine, oh, it's not fast enough, it's not stiff enough. What? That's not what it's for. There are plenty of cars out that are faster than this thing, but when you compare the speed, the maneuverability, the silky smooth ride, and the looks, if you're in that rarefied atmosphere that you think nothing of buying a sports luxury car for $100 grand, but if you've watched me in the past and knowing what I say about these open mouth grills, I'd have a custom made one. I don't like these big mouths. Everybody's used them. I just don't like them. I don't like the style of it. Put a different facade on it. It's a 2020 Toyota Supra. Now this car is a classic roadster. It has a big engine in the front, in this case a 6-cylinder with a turbocharger in it. It has the classic 2 seats. It's a 2-seater. It's a roadster. And classic roadster, it is rear wheel drive. Now here, let's let the cat out of the bag. Even though it says Toyota Supra on it, as we open the door, we can see on the sticker, what does it say? Manufactured by Bayerisch Motor and Werke AG. So in reality, this is made by BMW, but not just BMW. Technically, these cars aren't even made in Germany. They are made in Austria by the Magna Steyr company. Now Steyr used to have a deal with Daimler, then a Canadian company, Magna, bought them out. Magna Steyr is the company that makes very high-end luxury cars. They also make the G-Wagon, the Mercedes Geladenwagen. So in reality, this Toyota Supra is a Canadian, Austrian, BMW Toyota. It's a high-end European roadster. If you're looking for a roadster, hey, this might be the roadster for you. Now you might very well wonder, why is Toyota selling BMW roadsters and calling them Toyota? As far as I can comprehend myself, and it certainly is logical, if they wanted to design from scratch a rear wheel, high horsepower roadster that would cost millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to do it correctly. And for cars that don't sell that much volume, like a fancy roadster, that's not a wise economic decision. So instead, they've allowed BMW to make the entire car, and then they do have a roadster, albeit a BMW roadster. Since roadsters don't sell mass production, it makes no sense to put all their money in development to a car you're not going to sell that many. Give you a comparison. Last year, Toyota sold about 337,000 Camrys. Last year, Toyota sold 2,884 of these Supras. Just look at the volume. They're making money on the Camrys. You're only selling a few thousand of these roadsters. It wouldn't make no sense to put all that money into research, development, designing, perfecting it, when there already is a roadster out there. Now this 2020 Supra is not exactly the same as the BMW Z4 Roadster. They're both made by BMW in the same factory. It has 335 horsepower. The BMW Z4 the same year has 382 horsepower. And you might well ask, why the horsepower difference? They have the same engine, BMW straight 6. They have the same transmission, a ZF8 Speed. That's also made in Austria. Why does this have less horsepower than the BMW? Well, here's why. If you look down here on the Supra, it has 1 supercharger, while the BMW Z4 has 2 superchargers, hence it has more horsepower. Now, that got me to wondering, why is Toyota selling the same basic vehicle with 1 turbocharger when the BMW has 2 turbochargers? Well, to me, that also makes sense from Toyota's perspective. 2 turbochargers cost more to maintain, cost a whole bunch more to replace. I've been a mechanic for 52 years. Last year, I had to change 2 of the turbochargers on a BMW 6. The bill was over $12,000. If you have 1, easier to maintain, less expensive repairs. Look, this Supra has well over 300 horsepower. I drove it hard. It is a very fast car. Some people even said it's got too much power. They'd rather buy the 4-cylinder one. So it's not like it's losing power, but Toyota, which has been a company that always easy to maintain, reliable vehicles, don't need very many repairs, and when they do, they aren't generally all that expensive. To me, that follows more along the line of Toyota's philosophy. BMW is an elite European car manufacturer. You better expect very expensive maintenance and super expensive repairs when they break down. So in that respect, realize if you buy this Supra, you're not buying a Toyota, you're buying a BMW. You're buying the speed, the handling, the technology, an extremely efficient yet smooth ZF 8-speed transmission. But you're also buying a BMW with very high maintenance and very high repairs when they wear out. That's just the way elite European cars are, especially in the United States. Look at my wife's Lexus. That thing is 18 years old, still rides like a dream, runs like a dream. I've owned it for 7 years. I put less than $400 in parts in it. Basically, brake pads when they wear out, and I change the fluids a lot. That's it. You cannot do that with a BMW. They are expensive to maintain, and they are very expensive to repair. When parts break, they're uber expensive parts. This car doesn't have Toyota parts on it, it's got BMW parts. You have to realize that if you want to get this car. If you buy it fully loaded like this, $17,000 cheaper than the fully loaded BMW version. Now, I guess BMW and Toyota made a deal. All of the BMWs are convertibles. So you're getting a convertible with a BMW, you're getting a hardtop with this. This is a classic hardtop roadster. It has 2 seats, 1, 2. This is not a family car. It's made for people who like roadsters, a serious driving car. In that respect, I drove it hard and handles great at high speeds. Tons of acceleration, but it's a roadster. If you or your loved one is relatively short, the seat's not made for you. My wife sat here, she kept hitting her head on the plastic part here. Didn't reach the headrest. This is not a car designed for smaller people. Me, I love driving it. The headrest fits my head perfect. Put it in sport mode. Turn off the traction control. It does warn you that the traction control is off. But in case you get too carried away, it's got a heads-up display. Check it out. It says they're going 0 because they're going 0. But next to it is the speed limit sign. In this case, it says it's 35. That's the speed limit here. And if you go over, it will flash and tell you you're going too fast. I tried that thing out when I took a trip to the beach on the highway. It worked great. Speed limit was 65. All of a sudden there was construction. The sign said 55. As soon as I got past that sign, it went from 65 speed limit sign on the car to 55 and flashed, warning me. Now, if you are a fast driver, don't be worried that the stupid thing's going to be flashing at you forever. It flashes for a few seconds and then it stops flashing. It'll stay up there and you'll see the speed limit's 55 if you're going 65, but it won't be flashing the whole time and be annoying. They thought about that too. Now, all the modes in this new car work fine. Now, we have it in regular mode. We don't have it in sport. You can see here. Now, listen to the engine. Okay, now we're going to turn it on sport mode. You can see it says sport mode there now. Now listen to the engine. Now it sounds like a Ferrari. And then if people don't like that noise, you can just turn the sport off and then stops doing it. Doesn't have as much power, but it's quieter. It does have this 8-speed ZF transmission. I personally find the electronics on these things annoying. Trying to get it in and out of park, you got to get used to it. It's kind of squirrely. But on a positive side, it really shifts well. Those 8 speeds, they are seamless. The more gears you have, of course, the closer the ratios are, the less differential when it goes from one gear to the other. This thing is smooth on a highway. You want to floor it, it'll shift down gears so you get tons of acceleration. And that ZF 8-speed transmission, man, there's a lot of them out there. In 2017, ZF sold 3.5 million of these 8-speed transmissions. Used in a lot of applications. They're engineering marvels. Of course, they're also engineering nightmares when you finally have to rebuild them when they wear out. Whew, you're talking about gigantic money. And again, you're buying a European Roadster here. You're gonna save a lot of money buying one of these versus buying a BMW Roadster. And if you absolutely positively gotta have the 380 plus horsepower, wait for the 2021 models. The Supras are gonna have those engines in them then too. But this thing has no lack of horsepower as it stands. Do you want the ultimate one? Hey, wait till 2021. I'm sure the price will go up somewhat too, because then you gotta pay for the 2 turbochargers instead of 1. So let's close the door and take it for a ride. We'll put it in sport mode too. There we go, sport. Let's stop on the gas. This thing has power. It also handles like a dream. Now, it's a roadster. You're gonna feel the bumps. That's how roadsters are. If you complain that, oh, I feel and hear the road, and you buy this car, that's as bad as someone who buys a motorcycle and then complains that, well, it only has 2 wheels and it has a tendency of falling over if you don't watch it. Now you can drive this car as slow as you want, have the traction control on, no problems whatsoever. Do you want to drive it seriously? Turn off the traction control. This is a driver's car. Now, if you really want to go fast, this does have some safety involved. The top speed is 155 miles an hour, which is electronically limited. The car could go a lot faster if they wanted to, but they have electronically limited here in the United States to 155 miles an hour. And let's face it while we check it out. It's a sharp looking car. Hey, this thing turned heads when I drove it on the beach. It is a good looking car. And sure, it's got a small trunk. Now, I was able to, by going at angles, get a couple beach chairs and a cooler in here. And if you look at the hole that goes into the front, it's got enough room for a beach umbrella, or more importantly for some people, a set of golf clubs fits in there too. This is the LS 500, a true luxury sedan. That's what the LS stands for. As we walk around, you can see it's conservative in its color, but nice bits of chrome. Cool dual exhaust system. This particular edition here, being a loaded edition, it actually costs more than I just sold my mother's house for in Niagara Falls. And this doesn't even have a bathroom in it. Now, I personally like this version because it's classic. It's classic rear-wheel drive. You can get it an all-wheel drive too. The rear-wheel drive ones are a little bit quicker. And of course they get a little bit better gas mileage. But they all are just steeped in luxury, as you're going to see inside. As you climb inside, it's understated. This one's the black leather, my favorite. Oodles of room in the back seat. No crowded back seat in this luxury sedan. And yet it has things you'd never think of in a car. Watch this. We'll push the seat button. There's the seat. Then we go up to the main control. And what do? We go down to driver's seat refresh. There we go. And it turns your chair into a massage parlor. Let's try upper body. We'll turn it on. And what happens? The seat, well, not this seat. The seat I'm in is now massaging my back. And you can run this while you're driving the car. Check it out. It's massaging my back. It's doing a traditional Japanese shiatsu massage on me. And as you can see, there's various settings you can do. No more getting a sore neck or back because you're driving too far. Now perhaps it's overkill because these seats are so comfortable anyway, but there's no such thing as overkill in a car like this. It's quiet, and quieter than you might think. It has active noise cancellation technology. So when you're driving down the road, not only do you have a silent car, but it's perfectly set up with insulation and noise canceling sound that you can have conversations with the people in the back seat without having to raise your voice. Hey, you're driving this thing around long distances, you might come out feeling better than you did before the trip. Instead of saying, oh, my neck, my back, this thing's massaging you while you drive down the road. And of course, it's got various settings. You know me, I want to put it on the sport. So you go a little bit zippier, a little bit worse gas mileage, but it's more fun this way. And I also like the idea that you can buy what you want. This is a rear-wheel drive, classic. That's what I'd like. But for you in the snow belt, to go skiing all the time, drive in rainy areas, you can buy an all-wheel drive version. It's your choice. You are not forced to buy a vehicle that only comes in all-wheel drive, like many other manufacturers have. Now, as you can see, this luxury sedan is still made in Japan. All these LSs have been made in Japan from the very beginning. This is the quality when you close the door. One solid car. And yes, it's heavy. It weighs over 2.5 tons. That's what helps give it a really good ride. Solid drivability. You don't buy these things for gas mileage. This thing gets 19 in the city, 26 on the highway if you're lucky. This one's just a few C notes below $100,000 for a new car. You paying that kind of money? Who cares about stinking gas mileage? Like my father used to say with his big block Chevy V8 engines, I run a gas station. I got thousands of gallons of fuel under the ground here. What What do I care about gas mileage? And of course, it's like driving around in a magic carpet ride. It's so smooth. It's got all kinds of electronic controls on the suspension system, which you can tell by looking inside here. Check out that giant strut assembly. It's a KYB, very complicated electronic suspension system. These things are like driving around the magic carpet. They really are. Check under the hood. Doesn't have a V8 engine anymore. Got a V6 engine, but it's a twin turbo. Now personally, I've always been a fan of the V6 Lexus engines myself. They have extremely long life, but sometimes a little bit less horsepower. This thing puts out plenty enough horsepower. 416 horsepower and 442 pound-feet of torque. It certainly can pull itself, and it's hooked up to Toyota's newer 10-speed automatic transmission. Now it does have a conventional torque converter. It is not a dual clutch transmission. A lot of manufacturers are going away from the dual clutch transmissions because of the problems they have as they age. This is a conventional type of transmission, but it doesn't drive conventional. This thing, when you're driving it, as far as I'm concerned, it's just as seamless as the dual clutch transmission. It's got 10 speeds. You can fiddle around with the paddle shifters if you want, but put it in D, stomp on it, and you can drive any way you want. Just put it in drive, it goes 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds, which is plenty quick enough for a luxury sedan. This isn't a race car, wasn't meant to be a race car. It is lower to the ground, but that's for handling. But of course, that's not comfortable for people getting in their luxury car. So when you push the button to unlock the door, the car automatically raises itself up so you can easily get in, and then when you start driving, it lowers itself back down again. They thought of everything in this car. Check this when you look inside. What's up here? There's speakers in the roof. And to make everyone happy, it's got dual sunroofs, front and back. But you can play around if you want. Like I say, you can put it in drive, or you can go to manual. Then you can play with the shifters all you want to shift up and down. You can play around if you want to. But me, I'm going to put it in sport mode and show you what it can do. And as we back out, you can see it's got that great Lexus system where you can see everything in the side. It's even warning about the bushes to the right that I really need to trim. Now the first thing you notice is how smooth it is. It is really like driving on a magic carpet ride. But of course, old Scotty wants to see how fast it goes, so we have it in sport. Let's step on the gas and see what happens. You can hear those turbos kick in, shifts like a dream. This baby's got some zip to it. There's no arguing that. So if you think a V6 engine isn't enough with twin turbos, let me tell you, it is. And it's twin Lexus turbos. I've yet to see one of those things break yet. It just rides like a dream, flowing over the bumps. And hey, with that massaging back seat, you're not gonna get worn out driving this thing. Hey, even if you do have a chauffeur to drive you around, you might say, get out of the seat, get in the back. I'm driving this thing. It's got all those heads-up readouts, tell you the speed limit, even tell you the compass of what direction you're going in. So the next time that your old computer says head east, you'll know which way to head without guessing. Really like that feature, the nice little compass and the speed limit. Oh, the truck's gonna get us! Ah! All in all, it's pretty interesting to see how the other half drives. Well, less than half. But old Scotty's a cheapskate. Because my wife's old 19-year-old Lexus still rides like a dream. And since I bought it used, if I could find more of them, I could buy 30 of those for the price that you'd pay for one of these. Granted, this thing has twice the horsepower and rides about 1,000 times more sophisticated than that one does. But old Scotty's cheap. Now people can whine all they want about, oh, well, for that money, look what you can get in a Mercedes or an Audi or a... Yeah, well in those, what do you get? You get an endless money pit that's worth nothing when you're done with it. These things hold up. My wife's Lexus, hey, thing's pushing 20 years old. Still runs pretty much like a new vehicle. And it's got a V6 engine too. So, if you're a rich person who's looking for a long-term car, hey, who knows? One day I might be driving a used version of this car. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.